Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Monday morning, everyone. How do you do? Oh, this is the Democratic National Convention week. Very, very exciting. A lot of folks fleeing Chicago because of fears of Democrat activists turning, I was going to say Chicago into some sort of crime zone. It's already there. There are businesses that have hired companies to come board them up. The unrest that is anticipated, it's interesting. It didn't get any of that in Milwaukee with the Republican National Convention. None of that stuff happened. You did not have these businesses fleeing Milwaukee because of fears of Republican activists who who were going to be there in order to push back against the elites, the establishment of the Republican Party. None of that stuff occurring. But here, the Democrat Party, it just is a perfect illustration of what this party is. It is a party that invites chaos, invites violent dissent. The protests have already begun. Now, there are a lot of questions as to the degree of this. And they're not just the anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party. You always have, you're going to get the environmental extremists who believe that we can magically control all things climate and weather. You're going to get these different little pockets of individuals. But it's believed that those who have funded so many of the protests in the past, we look, for example, on the college campuses and the anti-Semitism that was there. And there were two beliefs here. One, that this is just the natural result of Democrat policies, particularly with DEI and CRT, that the Jewish people, they're predominantly seen as being white, so they are the oppressors. That is according to the matrix that the Democrats push, and so they are the enemy, which is why you had all of these left-wing activists on the college campuses rearing their ugly head. And then there were those who noted, well, look, all their tents are alike. They have this equipment being shipped in, so clearly there's funding here. What was going on is you had the organic hatred and anti-Semitism of the Democrat Party coming into play, but then you had the funders that were amplifying it, that were assisting so that they could be more effective and more efficient. It's believed to a large degree the grassroots anti-Semitism is going to still be there, but those entities, those individuals, those organizations that put a lot of funding into it to make them more effective are going to be holding that money back because they like Kamala. And they believe that their purposes will be served with Kamala in the White House and certainly with Waltz, who every day that goes by, there are increased signals of his ties and warm embrace of anti-Semitism. And they see this as good, positive, and so they aren't going to utilize their dollars in order to help the vocal on the street protesters and demonstrators become even larger than they currently already are. What will this look like as the week plays out? I suppose this is much of what we are going to see. So we've got that going on. The economic policies of, I'm wondering if the speech is going to be rewritten. There was the big announcement Friday, of course, Kamala Harris's economic plans. And even on CNN and MSNBC, while you're going to find some that cheerlead anything she does, the folks that generally would be trotted out in order to talk about how wonderful her plans are have ranged everywhere from this is horrible, this has been tried in the Soviet Union and Venezuela, and this does not work, to at best, well, she probably won't really implement this. Gretchen Whitmer on one of the networks being interviewed about these economic policies, downplaying them, saying, it's, mostly symbolic. We shouldn't read too much into it. The people that should be out there bragging about her plan, touting it, saying, yes, here it is. This is the answer. Her own people, at best, most generously, are trying to convince the voters, oh, she won't do it. Don't worry about it. After this reaction and response, you again, if the speech was already written from an economic standpoint, that component to her speech during the Democratic National Convention, are they starting from scratch? Are they going to rewrite that? Because based off of the reaction from her own people, this clearly is not an economic policy that they feel is a winner. Weather in a moment. Also, traffic. Pyramid Roofing Company. Talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 61. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 82.
Peter Pan, Juanita K, Hammond's Hall. You can register to win a pair of tickets to see the classic performed by Broadway's Best by registering at KSGF.com. The show going on at Juanita K, September 9th through 11th. Or you can, again, register to try and win your tickets, KSGF.com. Businesses are not taking any chances during the Democratic National Convention this week. Downtown Chicago looks like a coastal city when a hurricane is coming. People are boarding up and leaving town. Here is one local report from the streets in Chicago.
We are on Washington and Wabash outside of a Garland building, which houses a number of businesses, including stores and some restaurants and offices. Now, as you can see behind me, you'll notice that the front of the Garland building is covered in plywood. It's basically covering the windows and the door, and that's to be able to protect the building, and I should say the entrance of the building, from any potential unrest that could happen ahead of the, once the DNC does come around here, since we are anticipating some protests to take place. Now, the Chicago Board of Services says their crews have been busy the last few days boarding up businesses to get ahead of potential damages. Now, so far, they've secured 12 locations around the West Loop, downtown, and Daly Plaza area, with plans to board up additional businesses this weekend as a preventative measure if protests related to the DNC erupt violently.
This is what we're told. The new positioning of this entire Democrat culture and campaign is one of joy. I'm not sure if you've picked up on this. This is what you do when your party lacks substance. You slap a happy fun label on it that can't necessarily be defined because it's a feeling, not results, and joy. But this is joy. People that fear for their livelihoods, so they hire other people who exist in order to board up businesses to make it more difficult for the joy to, throw bricks through the windows, for that joy to steal from them in the name of equity, of course. This is what joy looks like under what would be a Harris Walz campaign. You can keep that joy. Clearly, the people in Chicago do not want it. Scott Shapiro, who owns the Send Jerome menswear shop on Clark Street, said he wasn't taking any chances during the Democratic National Convention, where thousands of protesters are expected, since his store has been looted by vandals 4 times this year alone. Quote, you get that phone call in the middle of the night, your heart jumps out of your chest, he told the outlet. Quote, when we went to sleep a little more soundly at night, or we want to rather sleep a little more soundly at night, and that gives us a little security, and we hope that there isn't any incident, obviously, but in the event there is, we want to have maximum protection. Shapiro said the store will remain open, but the boards will stay up for the duration of the Democratic National Convention, which runs August 19th through 22nd. He said that he won't hesitate to temporarily close his shop at the first sign of trouble. Quote, it's better to be safe than sorry. Most retailers are eternal optimists. They always think tomorrow is going to be better than today, and you always hope for the best, but it doesn't always work out that way, he told the New York Post. Now, of course, the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois, all Democrats. The state's run by Democrats. The city of Chicago, certainly, generationally, there's not a person alive that has ever, had any sort of Democrat influence over Chicago in a meaningful way. And they're saying, don't worry, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And it could be. It could very well be. It could be the standard. Democrat protesting, only a couple of police officers assaulted, only a few storefronts that are vandalized. Perhaps flash mobs go in and steal things in the name of equity. But that, let's be honest, is what Chicago is accustomed to. I mean, that is any given weekend in Chicago. So there's a very good chance that Chicago this week, with the protesters that have already descended upon it, will really ultimately be no more dangerous than it normally is under Democrat leadership and has been for generations. But we shall see. There's a comment, however, that this particular business owner makes, and he notes that retailers are generally eternal optimists, and they always just think tomorrow is going to be better than today. And I think oftentimes it's rationalization. We do that as human beings. You're just hoping, quote, hope that it gets better, because oftentimes what it takes to make things better is it's very difficult. It's easier to hope. You and I look at some of this from afar and think, why do these people bother? If you are a store owner and 4 times this year alone, you have had your store robbed, and clearly this is not an isolated incident in Chicago. This is Chicago, like Baltimore or St. Louis or Washington, D.C., and we ask ourselves, well, why do these people stay there? Well, it's difficult to pick up and move your entire livelihood. That is a very difficult thing to do, and economically speaking, disproportionately, the inability to actually do that impacts the poor, the lower income. This is the real rub of living in a Democrat-run city, is if you are in the lower income segment of the population, you probably don't have the means to flee, to escape, and you're trapped there. Middle income, it becomes much, much more difficult. Now, if you're extremely wealthy, you can flee, but oftentimes the uber wealthy, they are protected. They're isolated from all of this, and so they are the least impacted. So when you have the Democrat rule over a city like Chicago, the people who get harmed the most and who are exposed to the most harms are the ones who have the least resources to actually be able to escape it. I mean, you have these cities, they're turned into these hellholes in which it is very, very, very difficult for people to escape. And so I sympathize with these business owners in particular, and how just they get beat down. They're treated like this. They know, I mean, that there is no whether it's willingness or know-how, that it isn't going to change. They have become accustomed to it. It's like being in an abusive relationship. At some point, you just live with it, and you do get used to it. Now, the one area, and this is a collective approach, in which they can fix the problem is to stop putting these same people in charge over and over again. And by same people, I mean individuals with the same approach. So they may have voted out Mayor Beetlejuice, but they simply replaced her with somebody that has the exact same approach. And you know this because it's, you're talking about members of the Democrat Party in Chicago. You're not a member of the Democrat Party in Chicago unless you are a mimic of everyone else, unless your approach is the same as all the others. This is part of that Democrat culture. You are lockstep in with, otherwise you're ostracized. And as long as the people of Chicago, of St. Louis, of Washington, D.C. continue to put the exact same people in charge with the same approach, the outcome is going to be the same as well. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Illinois has also dispatched the National Guard to assist law enforcement in Chicago. You just cannot get a better symbolic through symbolism, and it's real though. Evaluation of the two political parties and the approach to things. And even though the Republican National Convention was in Milwaukee, which is run by Democrats, you did not have National Guard necessary on standby. There was no need for it. You did not have businesses boarding up and fleeing the city in fears of what sort of violence that Republicans might bring to the city. What does this tell us? It isn't as if one can look at it and say, well, Chicago's crime-ridden and Milwaukee isn't. Yes, Milwaukee is crime-ridden as well. Milwaukee has the same sort of crime problem that cities like Chicago and D.C. and Baltimore have. It isn't different. It isn't as if the RNC was at some peace-loving cutout of land in which there never is any sort of violence. There's never any sort of crime. And so that's why violence did not, or at least the fear of violence wasn't prevalent. Milwaukee is an extremely violent city and crime-ridden city. You look at Chicago and the campaign of joy and love and compassion comes to town, they've got to have the National Guard on standby. You have people, businesses boarding up, fleeing the city as if a hurricane is coming. What does that tell us? See, this is where intellectual curiosity is a benefit to mankind, is a benefit to any culture. Having those observations and then taking it a step further, wow, I wonder what's going on here. Now, of course, the reason that you have the problem with Democrats, with the violence and the protest, as opposed to Republicans, is because they understand where they are going to be a success. They understand that protesting at a Republican event is not going to get them anything. They will get no concessions. Any list of demands will be ignored. This is different than in dealing with the Democrat Party that has made very, very clear that they are catering to this element of our society. So they know where it is that they can get things done. This is why they protest outside the Democratic National Convention. This is why these protesters show up at Kamala Harris events as opposed to Donald Trump events. And that isn't to say that you don't have some people that will show up and protest at a Republican event or a Trump event. But when it comes to these significant protest in which you have large numbers of individuals that will get into these violent confrontations with law enforcement, that burn down buildings, that attack police officers, that attack civilians. It's always at these Democrat events when they have the massive disruptions. And that's because they know this is where we get things done. I don't know that there was anything in the modern era, or has been anything in the modern era, that really got that message across as much as defund the police. And it really began with, even prior to defund the police, the message that Democrats were sending, and some elite Republicans, to the protesters that demanded that statues be taken down, that monuments be taken down. And in order to get that done, they began, violent protest. And Democrats were the first to say, how fast can we take them down for you? Then comes defund the police. And they recognized, okay, violence and vandalism worked last time, let's try it again. And lo and behold, to the tune of billions of dollars of damage to city, numerous people losing their lives, including law enforcement. And they saw, I mean, you had Kamala Harris there raising money to bail these people out of jail, many of which would immediately go out and commit other violent crimes, including rape and murder. They watched Democrats say, oh, defund police, okay, we'll do it. There are numerous cities that were led by Democrats that did that. They defunded their police departments. Republicans, up until this point, have not responded to these sort of, if you want to call them terroristic threats, which I imagine if you are a business owner or you're a lower income person who lives in some of these areas, it is terrorizing to you. But Republicans don't respond to it, and so they've realized, the protesters, there's no value in protesting outside of Republican events. There is no value in protesting outside the Republican National Convention, because that's not where they get what they want. It is the same reason up until this administration in particular, we didn't negotiate with terrorists. Because once the terrorists realize that there is a value in kidnapping people, there is a value in holding people hostage, as we watch Hamas use this approach today, that they can leverage that in exchange for their demands. And for the longest time as a country, we didn't have the same problems in terms of terrorism and hostages that so many other countries had, because we said, no, we're not going to negotiate with you. You doing that gets you no leverage with us. But we've seen now with, prisoners being taken in Russia, or we've seen, of course, the hostages in Hamas. They've learned. They've learned, and they understand how it is that Democrats deal with this situation, and they're responding to it. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 61. For Tuesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 82.
Wilder RV, wilderrv.com. Maybe you haven't used your RV in a couple of years. You need a complete system check done. They can do that. Over the past year, I've really focused a lot on telling you about the wonderful world of RVing, how it can be a great little getaway for you without having to go that far, and how reasonable it is in cost with financing available, even for an RV that accommodates a family. But for those of you that do have an RV and you need that maintenance done, maybe you do a little bit of it yourself, or maybe you're one of those folks who you just kind of wait until something goes wrong and then you take it in. That can cost you more in the long run. So that's why you should keep Wilder RV in mind when it comes to all that maintenance stuff, whether It's the general maintenance, like making sure that your roof is conditioned, particularly if you aren't able to keep it in climate-controlled storage and it stays out in the summer and the winter time. That is very important. Or, backup cameras, some of the more high-tech stuff that can help you as an RVer. They can accommodate you. They can take care of you. That's Wilder RV, Clinton, Missouri, just north of Springfield, just a bit over an hour on 13, easy drive. You can find them also at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Oftentimes at events, conventions, whatever the nature, there's always free stuff, fun stuff. They want to make it free fun. Sometimes they have T-shirt cannons that they fire out into the audience. A lot of times there'll be little keychains or pocket constitutions, depending on the political persuasion. At the DNC, Planned Parenthood's going to be giving out free abortions. Oh, yes. What? You don't think that? I mean,
it's fitting for them.
Well, this is the campaign of joy. We can turn you all into a Susan Smith or, name any other mother who have killed their own children. And we'll celebrate you while you do it. I'm surprised that they don't, and maybe they do, whenever the killing is finished and then the child's mother walks out, they have confetti cannons. Do they do that? You've got these gender reveals. Do they do that? Do you get a pink one if you killed your daughter or a blue one if you killed your son? These little confetti cannons maybe. They love to celebrate this stuff. How dark of a political party. Yeah, I'm not fully naive. I understand. There are a lot of individuals out there who have found themselves in these very, very difficult positions, and they have been sold the idea that killing your own child will make things better, and so they do it. Many of them, of course, regret it. But the celebratory presentation that these left-wing outfits give for something that is such a dark thing. There are women in prison because they've killed their own children. And then to celebrate it, Planned Parenthood Great Rivers, which is the Chicago Abortion Fund, and the Wiener Circle, will be, quote, providing free vasectomies and medication abortion at Planned Parenthood Great Rivers Mobile Health Clinic, they announced on X. According to the New York Times, the mobile health clinic will be set up blocks away from the DNC. PPGR, which is part of the St. Louis region and Southwest Missouri, is described as being, quote, the leading provider, educator, and protector of sexual and reproductive health care in the St. Louis region, Missouri Ozarks, and beyond, according to the website for Planned Parenthood Great Rivers. They posted, "Here we come, Chicago," with an exclamation point. So excited. Our mobile health clinic will be in the West Loop. Is it really a health clinic? So that means that if you want a breast exam, you can go in. If you need to be checked out for skin cancer.
Your free flu shot.
Free flu shot. Maybe if you need your diabetes, you need some sort of check there, whatever. Because when you drive down any given road and you see whether it's Mercy or Cox Health Center, there are certain expectations, right? A health center deals with health. Do you think that when Planned Parenthood is talking about this being their, quote, health center, that it actually provides for health? No, of course it doesn't. It's abortion. It's not a health center. It is an abortion center. It is an abortion trailer. The Wiener's Circle, which features items on its menu, such as a charburger and hot dogs, wrote that, quote, all patients at the mobile health clinic will get a free hot dog coupon. So as you are walking away after your son or daughter has been disposed of, you'll be handed a coupon for a free hot dog. Because after all, paying someone to kill your own child, they say it works up an appetite. You don't want to get lightheaded afterwards.
Well, you don't even have to pay. It's free.
Well, yeah. You get. So it's a twofer there. Free hot dog with the killing of your baby. It's very classy. It's the party of compassion and the party of joy. You have to laugh at some point. It's just insanely disturbing The party, you've got to understand, this is a party that in the 90s talked about abortion being safe and rare. Only in the rarest of circumstances did they support it. This is the Democrat Party back during the day being the mid-90s. Rare. Oh, only under the rarest circumstances, and every abortion was something that was an unfortunate situation that is hurtful for everyone involved. Now, they give you free hot dogs to get one, and they celebrate them as if it's the most wonderful thing in the world. That's just sick. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Later in the program, we will get to the economic policies of Kamala Harris, which even the networks that are supportive of her, the so-called experts they have had on, said this is going to not be good. This is Soviet-style approach. And when it comes to housing credits that she's talked about, in order to make housing more affordable, it is going to do the opposite and make it even more expensive, which, of course, that's the typical approach of people who believe that government is the answer. They say, here's the problem we're going to tackle, then they make it worse. Now, when it comes to the home ownership aspect of this, and we talked just a couple of weeks ago, well, it was over a week ago, with Anthony Carricker, just about how this is what, particularly in election season, there's going to be a lot of disinformation that's out there. And there are going to be a lot of companies that try and play off of that disinformation, making claims about how they can get you the really low interest rates. And while that may be possible, it isn't as simple as that. It requires a lot of financial heavy lifting on your part. You got to pay a lot in order to get those lower interest rates. And that may be a situation you're in, but you may not be in. And will you come out ahead? That's where you can tap into the resources and the knowledge of the Carrickers and their team at iwantagreathomeloan.com, whether it's refinancing, a home loan, or just advice. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. There has, of course, been a great deal of attention paid to Minnesota Governor Walz and the stolen valor aspect of his resume, in which on numerous occasions, numerous interviews, numerous presentations on video and in print, he was listed as having a higher rank than he actually did and talked about going into war, which he did not. And in the beginning, they tried to downplay it. Well, he just misspoke once. But the problem was he allowed himself to be introduced that way on numerous occasions. He himself talked about it. He's been lying for a very long time about his rank and how he served. Now, he's tried to play the victim in this. You should never criticize someone who served. Oh, okay. Timothy McVeigh? I mean, really? Or is that what? That never, ever, ever criticize anyone who served? Okay, so we can throw that out the window. And, of course, no one has been critical of his service, but it's what he claimed. It's the service that he claimed that he served when he actually didn't. Apparently, he is not the only Democrat running for office who is out there lying about their resume, particularly when it comes to the military. And there is this gal who is, she's out in Nevada. And apparently, according to this story in Red State, and there are numerous witnesses and people giving interviews, that she is standing at the Nevada County Fair, and she's, shaking hands with people. And she gets into a conversation where she apparently falsely is claiming that she was shot at in Iraq. She served in the war in Iraq, none of which was true. It's just amazing to me, anyone, regardless of political party, but this generally falls on Democrats, lying about things that can so easily be proven as not true. Red State writing, it was a warm summer day, a little before sunset, at the Nevada County Fair last week when a family waited at the gate to buy their entrance tickets. They were approached by Jessica Moore, a Democrat candidate for U.S. Congress, who was making her way down the line passing out literature and campaigning. Jeremy Shekels remembers how his conversation with Moore started. Quote, "My dad, he served in the U.S. military for the Marines. We were in line, and Jessica Morse was in front of us talking to another patron at the fair. As we were approaching her, she was telling that person in front of us that she had served in the military. The two men decided to ask her more about her service. Quote, the line had moved forward in the gate, and we were next in line to talk to Jessica. I said, before you go any further, I'd like to know about your military experience, as you were telling the person ahead of me. Morse responded that she served in the military. When Shekels pressed her about where she served, she claimed that she got sent to Baghdad. The father was excited to meet another veteran and asked if she was in the forward or the rear. According to Shekels, she replied, quote, oh, I was in the forward. I was getting shot at. When he started to ask her more questions about her story, Morse became nervous. Quote, you could tell at that point that the gig was up. She backpedaled for a little bit on the conversation. She moved back a person and tried to fizzle out. He asked if she had a photo of herself serving. Morse said that she didn't have her phone on her then. Morse finally admitted that she, quote, worked with the military and didn't actually serve in the military. Morse then proceeded to change her story more, saying that, well, she actually was a defense contractor. If you're a defense contractor, you're not on the front line, Shekels said, reflecting on the conversation, adding that defense contractors also don't usually expose the work they do overseas. Shekels believes that she was counting on a moving line to prevent people from asking too many questions about her claims. When you're doing all the handshaking and all the back patting, her primary reason for being there is she knew the line was going to move rapidly. Nobody was going to challenge her. A bystander who retired from local law enforcement witnessed the exchange, saying, quote, I heard the lady running for Congress responding to the guy. I was shot at in combat. I served in the Middle East. I was at Camp Victory. I was in Iraq. And when Shekels asked her what branch she served in and who she served under, the bystander said she was dodging like she was caught in a lie. He remarked that the father and son talked to Morse, didn't step out of line, and they were peaceful but at the same time justifiably irked. Shekels remembers saying to the Democrat running for Congress, just so you know, there's a big difference in that. Why would you lie about that? Shekels said. Morse replied, well, I'm sorry, but you startled me. I guess that's just the common reaction of a Democrat running for office when they get startled. They just lie. Shekels responded to her by saying, you have zero reason to be startled about me asking you about your past history in the military. He believed that if a simple question about her background startles her, she doesn't need to be in Congress. She wouldn't last 5 minutes walking through the streets of D.C., he said. I started to say, you're basically doing a stolen valor. Right at that moment, the lane for the fair moved forward again, and I looked at her and I said, you're a lying politician. I heard what you said in front of me, and I witnessed what you said to my face. Witnesses were catching on to the disagreement. According to Shekels, a bystander who heard the interaction approached him and said it was the wildest thing he'd seen. Shekels remembered that another man waiting in line tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I knew what she said to you." Man, that was astronomical that she would try to lie about being in the military. After briefly speaking with the bystanders, Shekels looked back over to find Morse. I turned around. She had huddled up with all these people who were passing out flyers, and it was like a collaboration. He believes Morse was taking cover, concerned that she had been caught in a lie. Now, we're going to take a break, but out in Nevada, this is interesting. Evidently, on the ballots, they have what's called a ballot designation, where they put your profession as well. So if I were to run for Congress out there, it would say, Nick Reed, and it would say radio personality or something underneath it. Well, apparently this Jessica Morse has lied there's been 4 or 5 occasions in which the state has rejected what her claimed profession was because it wasn't true. Not once, not twice, but numerous times. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All the attention on Kamala Harris's VP pick, Walz, governor of Minnesota, lying about his military background record. There is a story in Red State about this gal, Democrat. She's running for Congress. Morse is her name, and she was, according to there were numerous witnesses at a fair event, and she was telling people that she served in the military, and so there was this son and father served in the military, like, oh, cool, where'd you serve, what'd you do, and it became very clear very quickly that she was making it up. Then said, well, actually, she admitted that she was a defense contractor. She wasn't actually even in the military. I mean, at least Walz was in the military. This chick wasn't even in the military. I just cannot imagine making up something that is not only so provably true or untrue, But just questions. I mean, unless you are some sort of military expert somehow, having not served in the military, to where you could BS your way through it. Now, out in Nevada, they also have what's called ballot designation, where when your name is on the ballot, your profession is also on that ballot. And Red State notes, it's not the first time that Jessica Morse has lied on her resume. When she ran for Congress in 2018, she listed a false ballot designation. A ballot designation is a profession you choose to have listed next to your name on the ballot for voters to see. According to Ben Christopher of Cal Matters, a judge stripped Democrat candidate Jessica Morse of her chosen designation, which she claimed was national security strategist, after her opponent, which was another Democrat in the race, sued. A candidate is allowed to list two alternative designations in case the first is rejected. Both of Morse's alternatives were also rejected as not being true, resulting in Morse, in that particular primary race, having no ballot designation. There were also some subsequent races in which she put disinformation about her profession as well, and these were also ruled to be ineligible designations on the ballot. Apparently, back in 2018, there was another instance. A court heard arguments and ruled that all three of Morris's proposed ballot designations were misleading under Election Code 13107. Apparently, she did not learn her lesson because, according to Brian Anderson and Emily Cadey of SAC-B, she attempted to list national security consultant on the following general election ballot, which was also rejected as false or misleading. Again, her alternatives were also rejected, making that 6 failed attempts to list a truthful profession. She ought to do great in Congress. In that general election race, the only profession she could truthfully list was candidate for Congress. That's what they eventually allowed her to, candidate for Congress. It's the only thing that she could put, which makes you wonder, what did she do for a living? It's just it. I know everyone's different, and at times I am one of those folks like, all right, well, try to put yourself in their position. I do. I can't figure it out. I cannot imagine, particularly when you are in the spotlight, unless you are just such a habitual liar that it never even crosses your mind, maybe I should not lie about this.
Yeah, I mean, if that person can't be truthful about what they do for a line of work, I mean,
Yeah.
can you trust them with anything else?
I don't know that district, but if it's heavy Democrat, I'm sure she'll
she'll
end
get
up,
in there just fine.
she'll probably get in there just fine. But like, I'm not sure the breakdown of the politics there. News in 60 seconds. A couple of different rallies taking place. So, well, more than that, obviously, but the juxtapositioning between a Kamala Harris rally versus a Trump rally, and it is, I think, what many people expected. In North Carolina, a rally Friday, WBTV reported that Harris addressed a few hundred supporters. Estimations that around only 250 people showed up. Apparently, there was no celebrity there to draw people in and then do the old bait and switch. Oh, by the way, some of these campaign rallies are similar to a timeshare pitch where you get the fun little vacation, but you have to sit through a presentation in order to get that vacation that comes along with it, that freebie. And some of these events that have larger crowds, that it was similar to that. People came in and they got to see their favorite artist perform in exchange for sitting through a presentation. Although it would be seen that at some of those events, people would leave as soon as the concert was over and just did not hold to their commitment to sit through the presentation part of things. Out in Raleigh, North Carolina, apparently not any big celebrity draw, only 250 people showing up. Meanwhile, Trump, of course, does not need celebrities. He is, for many people, the celebrity, if you will. He's the draw. He is the one that people come out to see. He doesn't have to try and figure out ways to get people to come out. And it's always celebrities with the people on the left. They just listen. I get it. I'm watching. They're talking the lineup at the DNC and some of the speakers, and they're Hollywood actors. Last week, we went over a poll that showed a majority of Gen Zers said that they will vote the way their favorite celebrity tells them to vote. A majority. But that's what matters to them. What their favorite celebrity tells them to do, they will do it. 40-some%, it was over 40%, said specifically Taylor Swift. Around 50% said Beyonce Knowles. This is why they bring the celebrities out. This is why they try and pay, and in some instances do, the internet celebrities, TikTok famous people, to pretend as if they're supporters of Kamala Harris. Up to the tune of $20,000. They're paying these people to come to the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, this week. A starker difference between the two campaigns you can't find. Even down to the relationship of the party with the people. You can't argue that the Republican Party, in terms of the candidate process for president, is anything other than the People's Party, because despite the pushback and the warnings from the party itself in many instances that Donald Trump should not be the nominee, the voters said, yes, he will be. Back in 2016, this began, in which the party told the voters, do not support this guy, and the voters said, we're in charge. We're going to do it. Look at the way that the Democrat Party has played out with its candidate. They are telling the people, this is the person that you're going to vote for. His name's Joe Biden. Vote for him. Okay. Then, when they decide they're worried that he can't win, they overthrow those elections in a coup, and they anoint Kamala, and they tell the voters, this is who you're going to support, and they all say, okay. You have one political party in which the voters choose the candidate, and the other political party in which the party tells the voters, this is the candidate you're going to choose. You cannot argue with it. That's how it has all played out. More just cringy, fake inauthentic videos being pushed out by the Kamala campaign as they go for a quest to find Doritos. I think that they have a point person. Like, you need to go out there and find out what normal people do. And then we're really going to make a big deal out of the fact that we also do that. And it's just so uncomfortable to normal people. Look at the weather here in a moment. Right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 61. On Tuesday sunny with a high near 80. And on Wednesday sunny with a high near 82.
Coming up Friday, 10 a.m., a new local for less. Big Whiskey's, American Restaurant and Bar. $50 gift certificates for only $25. That will be coming up on Friday at 10 a.m. So if you want a half-price deal on that, mark your calendar, and you have a chance to get those. Those usually go pretty fast. Any of the food ones tend to go pretty quickly, so you may want to keep on top of that one. And I'll remind you through the week. So if you're driving right now, you don't have the ability to safely put it on your calendar, don't worry. I'll remind you. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Vice President Kamala Harris's husband, second gentleman Doug Emhoff, appeared to aid Harris in her search for Doritos in a post on X. Walz shared a video that appeared to show him finding a red bag of nacho cheese Doritos, handing it over to Harris, who was standing in another aisle. Emhoff can be seen holding another bag of chips in the video. Every road trip needs a snack break, Walz wrote in his post on X. Doritos acquired. I got you, Kamala. In another video, a separate one, Harris can be seen standing inside a Sheetz with her husband before she walks off in search of chips. Ah, Dougie, there you are, Harris can be seen saying in the video as she walks back to her husband, thank you. Imhoff can be seen handing her a bag of Doritos. Author Murtaugh wrote on a post on X, quote, quote, most normal people don't make such a big deal about locating a bag of Doritos, but congrats on humaning or something. It is painful to watch people who are not normal try to act normal. And I am genuinely curious how they're coming up with this stuff that they believe is going to resonate with the average American. And because it's clear this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to connect. And oftentimes, even with their own race, like Tim Walz talking about eating white guy tacos, and Kamala, who acts like she's never been around a white person or acts like she's not married to one with 2 white stepkids. Well, what do white men eat? What kind of tacos? Do you put mayonnaise on it? Like, are you stupid? I mean, this woman is stupid. Well, but she doesn't really believe that white people put mayonnaise on tacos. But she believes that believing that somehow makes her relatable, or that people would actually think that or something. I don't know. It's difficult to figure out such a level of stupidity. And now, because this is all talked about and planned out. There's nothing about Kamala Harris that is not pre-planned. And for good reason. They're trying to hide her stupidity. They're trying to hide what it is that people don't like about her, and that is that she comes off as some sort of idiot. So at some point, they're sitting around, and they make this decision that it is apparently relatable to middle America to film themselves going on a search for Doritos, looking for Doritos. Oh, we found, and then more than one. There's 2 separate videos here. And so to me, that suggests that these are 2 separate places, and the interaction is different. And so it looks like they've done this twice. Like they're out there, and they're out just like you and me. We're on these road trips, and they're all in a car together. They're taking turns driving, and we got to pull over and get some Doritos. Are they Googling how do you act like a normal person? What do Americans do while on a road trip? Give me top 10 tips for going on a road trip. But just watching it and watching how it's filmed, and it's just such uncomfortable pandering. This has increasingly become a problem with Democrats who get high up in office, and that is that they have to try and learn how to seem normal. Now, Bill Clinton was pretty good at it. And Obama, I don't know. I think a lot of people just told themselves that he was more relatable than he was because it made people feel enlightened. Oh, I can relate to what could be the very first black president of the United States. Look how enlightened I am. But I don't feel that he never really tried to pretend that, through these shenanigans, these little acting portrayals. I never felt like he was, I don't think he felt like he needed to. He felt that he was Obama and the world loved him, and so he didn't have to pretend to be somebody he wasn't. But you see the Hillary Clinton and, the claiming that she always carries hot sauce in her purse while talking to black people, this stuff with Kamala and the phone calls, the fake phone calls, and then, and just this attempt to appear as if you're something you're not, where everything is absolutely fake. And of course, there's Biden and the 1,000 different stories he's told that are provably not true, and he continues to tell them. And I think this is what they do to themselves. They start off early in life where everything that they actually are, they slowly lose touch with because they're pretending to be whatever it is they think they need to be in order to get elected. And when their entire life is politics, they don't even know who they are anymore. That person, that truth that is in each of us, that is that person we really, really are, I think they strangle it. They cut it off from oxygen. They cut it off from just having any sort of connection to reality, and it eventually dies to where they're nothing. They are nothing. They are whatever a focus group says they need to be. And that leaves them at times looking ridiculous because they don't even know enough to know how to pretend to be someone else. That's how far removed they are from normal people, or as they see them, weird. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line question: how do we distinguish between the real and fake polls anymore? You don't. Now, when you say fake polls, does this mean deliberately fake or just inaccurate? Either which way, I just, things are so muddled any longer. You have so many variables. You have the variables of a media that is biased. That does not mean that they are going to overtly try to rig the polls. They may. You have an electorate that is increasingly unwilling to be honest with the media. I also think that there is a segment of the population that if they don't, I'm in this category. If there is a number that is calling me and I don't know that, if I don't have them on my phone, I don't answer it. Now, sometimes it might be someone that has been given my number and they'll leave a message and then I'll call back. But I don't answer it. And I think, and maybe I'm way off on this, but I suspect that people who are more likely to not answer calls from a number they don't recognize are going to potentially be more just suspicious of things, particularly government, and so they are going to be more likely to be conservative voters, and so you could have that also make an impact. Now, I'm not claiming that it even does. I just, there are so many variables involved today that once upon a time did not exist. Not to mention just the continued demonization of people who support Trump. To me, it's shocking that there are, even on camera, as many black people who admit that they're voting for Trump that do, because the way that Democrats and the media portray Trump supporters as being Nazis and domestic terrorists, but then, the way that they treat black people who do not fall in line. I mean, you just want to talk about a real intimidating environment that the left creates in this country. And so I can't help but believe that even the significantly higher poll numbers that Trump has versus past Republicans with people in the black community, that if I were to learn that actually the support was a little higher, it would make sense to me. The way that the questions are oftentimes asked as well, not so much specifically regarding for whom will you vote, because that's pretty straightforward. But as an example, I saw a poll being posted in which they asked people, do you feel like you know where Trump stands on the issues? Do you feel that you know where Kamala Harris stands on the issues? And 80-some% said yes for Trump, and it was lower for Kamala. But asking a question that way versus this MRC poll where they specifically asked, do you know that Kamala Harris has talked about allowing death row inmates to vote? 86% of voters said they were unaware. Do you know that Kamala Harris has in the past talked about supporting the elimination of private health insurance? 81% did not know that. That she promoted that fund to bail out violent protesters during the 2020 riots. 78% did not know that. That Harris in the past has talked about abolishing ICE. 77% did not know that. Harris was named the most liberal U.S. Senator in 2019. 75% did not know that. That Harris has said it should not be considered a crime to come into the U.S. illegally. 74% did not know that. Harris co-sponsored the Green New Deal. 73% of voters did not know that. Harris has never visited a conflict zone on the border as borders are. 72% did not know that. Harris has supported cutting funding for police. 71% did not know that. Harris supported reparation payments to atone for slavery in the U.S. 71% did not know that. So just even the way that the questions are asked, if you ask someone, do you know where they stand on the issues? And you, oh, yeah, I do. Well, you don't know what you don't know. And so all of the variables that are involved in there, I believe that even if you're an outlet who is hell-bent on being as accurate as possible in your polling, you're still dealing with variables that can throw things off. I just don't believe that we can look at the polls the way that and we still do, and there's a curiosity factor there, and I get it, and a lot of it's because if you support a certain candidate, you want to see how you're hopeful that even though you recognize that the polls aren't necessarily accurate and that they've in the past it's been a crapshoot, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but you still want to see something that gives you a sense of confidence or hope that we are going to get back on the right track in this country. And so the polls get done because it gets talked about in the media, it gets clicks. We want to see these things, but how is it that you pick which ones do and don't? Now, you do have some outfits like the Trafalgar Group that I believe that they genuinely do have one goal in mind, and that is to get the most accurate answers as possible. So that is going to be a start, because part of getting those accurate answers is determining why is it that we have gotten inaccurate answers in the past. Why is it that other outlets get inaccurate answers, and trying to remedy that so as to get more accurate answers. And the Trafalgar Group is one of those groups that has demonstrated their desire to do that. But still, you got a lot of variables at play there. So unfortunately, there's no easy answer. Not to mention, what we're talking about today is going to be a different situation on Election Day. And so many people who have gotten caught up in the hype about Kamala Harris, who believe that, oh, here's something fresh and new. After, a couple months from now, there's a good chance, if the Trump campaigns play all of this out correctly, that the people who have bought into what the media has been selling them, they may start to realize, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was, and things could change just in that natural evolution of a campaign season anyhow. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 61. For Tuesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 82.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Emily was amazing to work with as a first-time homebuyer trying to navigate a complex and fast-paced market. Emily did a wonderful job in helping us find the perfect home and stay positive, even in a very competitive seller's market. She was professional, knowledgeable, didn't pressure us to look at houses that wouldn't work or go over our budget. We absolutely plan on working with her again if we ever need a realtor. Can't recommend her enough. And again, particularly in uncertain times in the market, and what's it going to be like tomorrow versus now? What is it going to be a year from now? Is this the right time? Should I wait to see if this plays out? These are all questions that you should ask Emily, and she's going to give you valuable feedback that is based off of her knowledge of not just the industry itself, but specifically here in the area, and Willard versus Springfield versus Republic versus all of the other communities around. And just a few miles down the road can be the difference in approach for you. That's all information she can provide you. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, also KSGF.com, under Nick's endorsements. Talking about the complete, transparent pandering by the left, and how, to me, it's obvious that they are so detached from what is relevant to normal people, they can't even fake it very well. They come up with all of these absurd little plans. The most recent is videos being posted of Kamala Harris and her husband and Tim Walz going into a convenience store and buying chips, looking for, we're here for Doritos. Oh, okay, that's okay. Yes, we get it. You're just like us. Okay. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Another hilarious example of pandering was when Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, the beer video. And that was another where she was shooting a video from her kitchen, and she stops herself midway to ask her husband to get a beer out of the refrigerator, and he hands her a bottle, and she's drinking straight from the bottle. Oh yeah, that's exactly it, just like one of us. And it was right in the middle of her video too. I mean, that's just how casual and informal and relatable she is. It's some people like that. Apparently, because they gravitate towards it. Then there are those of us who we see that and we recognize, okay, they are faking it to try to lure us in. Why are they not just being themselves? What is going on here? For many of us, these are red flags, but for others, they're like kids, and somebody rolls up in a van and it says free candy on the side, and the door opens, and while there's a segment of the population you and I are in, like, clearly you do not get in that van, but they do. There's been an interesting study that is going to be obvious to you. Student loan borrowers who have been bailed out by Biden, do you know what they're doing? They're piling up new debt. Well, of course they are. You don't change people's behavior by absolving them of the responsibilities that come along with their behavior. Student loan borrowers who benefited from Biden's loan forgiveness, which of course was just a transference, are still burdened by their finances as their debt is continuing to accumulate, according to a Saturday Wall Street Journal report and a July study. Biden, who made so-called student loan forgiveness a key promise in 2020, has pushed forward with the initiative despite the U.S. Supreme Court ruling 6-3 in late June of 2023 to strike down his plans for nearly 40 million Americans. However, despite the loan relief, interviews with borrowers who have had their debt eliminated reportedly show that financial stress is still a major component of their daily lives as debt from other sources pile up, according to the Wall Street Journal. Well, of course, because their behavior is the same. A July study by Konstantin Yanalis, an associate professor of finance at the University of Chicago, who studies household finance, found that borrowers have accumulated other forms of debt since having their student loan forgiven. Yanalis' research shows that borrowers have seen increases in other types of debt. Auto loans have risen by $230. Credit card borrowing by $220, and home loans have also jumped. Despite having their student loans eliminated, these borrowers saw almost no change in their credit scores, which researchers believe could be due to the loan forgiveness recipients just simply taking out new loans to replace the old ones. Well, of course they did. Now, you may remember that there were a number of stories in which the media outlet would go talk to these young people who were saddled with debt and asking them, while Biden was out there trying to figure out a way to make this happen, what would you do? How could this change your life? Oh, we heard these wonderful stories. Oh, I could become debt-free. Oh, this would help me so much. And so that was the way that it was presented. That it would allow these young people to start life debt-free. You don't change behavior by rewarding it. Taking individuals who voluntarily took out loans and then swooping in and saying, I'll make someone else pay for your loan for you free and clear, don't worry, you're off the hook, is not going to make that individual's behavior become more fiscally responsible. We learn from our own experiences. And people oftentimes, particularly if they start out in life and they take on a lot of debt, and if they're responsible and no one comes in and tells them, don't worry, I'll take care of it for you. They either have to pay it off themselves or they don't, and then they take a big hit to their credit, which causes them financial stress down the road. Many people will take that experience and say, I don't want to live like that any longer, and they will alter the way that they do things, financially speaking. They will put less money on credit cards when they don't have to. They will be less likely to take out new loans because they remember how long it took to pay those loans off, and they understood the interest rate component to it. Or again, they just didn't pay it off, and they end up having it hit their credit for a number of years, and they remember the problems that that causes, how difficult it is to be able to do certain things financially that you may want to do that you're no longer able to do. And so those life experiences, those negative impacts that occur by not being financially responsible, are things that many people utilize and they remember. And that allows them to recognize the benefits of being more financially responsible. And not everyone's going to learn from those lessons, but you do have people that do. What doesn't teach or allow for people to learn from those lessons is if you deny them those lessons. When you're dealing with people, and of course you're going to have some people that had no choice but to take out the loans. You're going to have some people that, they probably could work in order to pay it off as they go or to pay for their school, but they make a decision. They make a life choice. And the life choice is, no, it will be easier to take out the loan. Well, when you make taking out a loan something that has absolutely no repercussions whatsoever, then it gives this sense of security to people that, I'll take out a loan. If I don't pay it, no big deal. It should come as absolutely no surprise. And it comes as no surprise to many of us to find out that these individuals who had their loans transferred to other people just went out and took out new loans. One of the individuals interviewed for this study in the Wall Street Journal, Kimberly Aquaviva, a University of Virginia school nursing professor, took out roughly $90,000 in student loans during the 90s to complete her bachelor's, master's, and PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. While the debt relief eliminated her student loans, she and her husband pivoted to spending the newly available funds on helping her stepdaughter pay off her student loans and are planning to also help their son as well, according to the Journal. It took some of the sandbags off my back, but it was not, okay, yay, now we can go do a lot of fun things. It was, okay, now I'm not in a bad situation I could have been, she told the outlet. What has changed isn't so much our quality of life, but our sense that we have some choice of how to use the $900 a month. The Biden administration forgave or transferred again the $1.2 billion. And so you are going to, as the Wall Street Journal noted here, and again, I don't think that this is necessarily a positive lesson. You have these individuals whose student loans were transferred, so they're going to use that in order to essentially absolve their own children of repaying their financial commitments, which these are not good life lessons. People's financial, it's like all behavior. When times get tough, as a result of your own decision making, and someone comes along and says, don't worry, I'll have someone else take care of it for you. And when you condition people to believe that when things get really hard or uncomfortable, don't worry, some politician's going to come in and make government take care of it for you, that de-incentivizes people to make wise decisions because they feel like, what do I have to worry about it for? Someone else will take care of it for me.
Do you think that we will see these young people in the next couple of years protesting, kind of like they did with the student loans? Do you think that they'll be protesting debt cancellation for their credit cards?
Oh, I'm sure. Or what they'll do is they will protest that if they just refuse to pay it, that should not impact their credit scores.
Yeah.
That's not fair. And then they, even though this is the mindset it sets, though. It's not my fault. Well, I just didn't know. I didn't understand. I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to get it. I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to get a job right out of college. And I didn't know that this was going to happen. I didn't know that that was going to happen. Well, that's why you sign contracts, because there are a lot of things you don't know. It's a commitment that you make. What further damages the approach for these people is that they paint it as virtuous, as somehow you are doing something righteous by having your commitment transferred to someone else. And so if someone is conditioned to believe that they're virtuous for making a financial commitment that they then don't have to pay off, somebody else does, then to Sarah's point, why not do that with credit cards? That mindset's not going to change. And look right now at what are the pitches, the economic pitches of Kamala Harris, junk fees. Now, this is referencing oftentimes, they talk about overdraft fees, or you don't pay your credit card on time, so you have to pay penalties. And it's all about absolving you of your decision making. And people like that. There's two types of people in this world. People who take responsibility for themselves because they find dignity in that, and they don't feel that they feel it's immoral to require other people to take on their responsibilities. And there's just such a narcissism to me. Like, why should somebody else be responsible for me if I'm not even willing to be responsible for me? But that's the approach that other people take, that they feel not only should they be responsible for themselves, somebody else should be. And it never stops. It just expands, 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 and expands. And so, yeah, you'll get these, whether it is something that is an organically evolving, here's somewhere else that I don't want to be, responsible for my own behavior, maxing out my credit cards. Why should I have to pay it off? I didn't know the interest rates were going to be so high. The print was so small. Quote, nobody reads the fine print. Or will it be, they don't, it looks like we are starting to see this, they don't even have to start doing that, because you're going to have one political party in particular that's figuring out ways, how can we buy their votes? What can we do now? Oh, how about this? People who max out their credit cards. How about this? People who overdraw their bank accounts, and so they end up with an overdraft fee. We'll tell them, even though they signed an agreement saying they understood that and would be responsible for that, let's take that away from them as well. You do not change behavior by rewarding it. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. I'm surprised Cackling Kamala and Tampax Tim didn't ask for a hunting license when they were at the convenience store. Yeah, that would have been relatable. We were talking earlier about the latest videos put out by the Harris folks in which they go into a convenience store, I think a couple of different, and they're looking for Doritos. Oh, I mean, they're really searching for them because they're just so absolutely, completely normal. We were talking, somebody had texted in with Elizabeth Warren and the drinking of beer at one when she did a video, which it's just the way these things are done. You can tell it's fake. They don't even seem real. There was another video, we had talked about it at the time, and it was during the Bud Light controversy, and there were a bunch of, I think Adam Schiff was one of them. There were these 5 or 6 Democrat lawmakers, and they were at some event, and they were all drinking Bud Light out of a can. We're like, okay, come on. Most of them probably never even had beer out of a can, let alone Bud Light. We were talking about during the break, and Chuck Schumer, in which he posted a photo of him, quote, grilling on the grill for Father's Day, and it was this frozen patty on the grill, and the cheese was already on it. I mean, it's just it's so you mock it because it's so embarrassing. And it does tend to be Democrats. I can't think of, I'm sure that there are some examples of Republicans doing this sort of thing. I just can't think of any. And it's just so obvious. Sarah she was asking the question, like, do these people, when this stuff, whether it's the way that they pretend that they're drinking the beer, that, like...
Yeah, do they just have, like, a random grill out on Sunday? Like, you know what, it's going to be nice. I'm going to, like, roll out the Blackstone, fire it up, invite the neighbors over.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to what you might do and I might do, something like that, and like Sarah says, you're going to invite some people over, and so you're going to grill out burgers. Like my sister over the 4th of July weekend, and we did just that. You know, a lot of the food, everyone kind of brought something, but that's not particularly people on the left. The rich elites, they cater. They don't actually go to the grocery store and buy the stuff. They have caterers that take care of all that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing any sort of catering. I've been to events that are catered and so forth, but that's why they don't know this stuff. They genuinely live in a completely different world than you and I do. And I get that. And I'm not even criticizing that. The problem is, though, when they, one, want to pretend as if they know what we live like, and it's fully exposed that they don't, because they try to fake their way through it, and it's just
That's what makes it so cringy.
It's that, tell me that you lied on your resume without telling me you lied on your resume, and they do it all the time. They pretend that they understand our lives. Don't. And in addition to it, stop trying to tell us how to live our lives when you don't even know what our lives are like to begin with. I mean, even if you had, for some cosmic reason, this godlike authority over us, and you believed as human beings that you should tell us how to live our lives, you don't even know what our daily lives are like anyhow to begin with. So you'd be the last people that should be experts in how it is that we should live our lives. But it doesn't stop them, and they get a lot of people who vote for them because people want to be told how to live their lives and told, don't worry, I'll take care of you. You have no reason to worry about taking care of yourself. That's other people's jobs. Referring to an article earlier, the Wall Street Journal, a study that was done that showed that students that had their loans transferred to other people, usually blue-collar workers, by the Biden administration in defiance of the Supreme Court's ruling on that all those individuals, they're just adding up new debt. And I got a text in saying, knew someone who graduated with a law degree, huge debt, got the debt forgiven, and immediately went out and bought a new Tesla. Of course. Why not? This is the attitude and the mentality that the left creates in this country. I'm not responsible for myself. I want to be kept. I want to be taken care of. And so instead of seeing it as, thank goodness, no longer do I have debt, I'll just put it elsewhere. Why not? News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Coming up in this hour, we will be talking about some of the reaction to Kamala Harris's economic policies. Soviet-style price controls, Venezuela-style. This is the approach that has been taken on a number of occasions and has failed miserably. And even amongst her supporters, this is a really bad idea. Gretchen Whitmer being interviewed about it over the weekend and tried to downplay it, essentially suggesting that, well, she won't actually really implement it. It's mostly symbolic. Well, then what's the point? She's painted herself into a bit of a corner here because the economy is not good, despite still trying to claim that it is. They've put themselves in these positions where they have to contradict themselves, telling you that, well, no, actually the economy is really good, but then acknowledging it's not. But it's not there. They can't take blame for it. She can't. What are they going to say? Oh, yeah, it was because of our policies. What economic policy can she offer up that is going to result in the opposite from what we saw during the economic policies that she has in place today with Biden? What is she going to do? Say we were wrong? No. So what do? You blame the citizen. You blame the business owner. You blame the corporation, or you blame the shareholders whose retirements are reliant on these companies making a profit. There's a contradiction there. Every time Democrats rail against a company making profits, they are railing against you having an improved retirement fund. Because your retirement funds are tied up in the stock market. And the stock market does well when companies profit. Every position they take is a contradiction. So you just blame the people. There's a CEO of Goya Foods. It's the largest Hispanic-owned food company in the United States. And his name's Bob Unanu. His description of the Kamala Harris economic policy, quote, they're using a nail gun to put the last nails in the coffin of this economy in this country. I mean, catastrophic. And what we're going to be told by the media, and you can even hear it over the weekend, some of the presentation that well, this is, this is mostly just lofty ideas, see? So you're being told that here is this candidate, here are her economic policies, but they're not really going to happen anyway, so vote for her. I thought I'd share this story with you because this is, once again, man, when are people going to wake up? An instance in which government said we're going to fix a problem and they made it worse. California's 2014 ban on plastic grocery bags caused more plastic bag waste, not less, according to the Wall Street Journal. This was, and people forget, we went to plastic to save the planet in this country. Left-wing environmental activists said that we have to use plastic so that we stop cutting down trees. And so we go to plastic, and as usual, then at some point when everybody complies, everyone gets accustomed to it, no, we have to get away from plastic because plastic is now what's destroying the planet. Not the cutting down of the trees, but the plastic. 10 years after the California ban went into effect on thin plastic grocery bags, the amount of plastic bag waste per California resident has risen by almost 50%. So we're not talking 1 or 2%, 50%. The journal notes specifically, the weight of plastic bag waste per capita increased after the original ban was passed. Even a study called Plastic Bag Ban Works, done by environmental and public interest groups featured a table showing that the amount of plastic bags thrown away per 1,000 people in California rose from 4.08 tons in 2014 to 5.89 tons in 2021. The report blamed it on a loophole in the law. So it didn't work, according to the left-wing activists at the time, but it didn't work because of a loophole in the law, therefore it actually did work. Because you have to dismiss the fact that it didn't because of the loophole. When the ban on thin, single-use plastic bags went into effect, shoppers were left with a choice between paper bags or heavier multi-use plastic bags. But many people apparently did not reuse the thicker plastic bags as often as politicians imagined that they would, because, again, they don't live like we do. Particularly those on the left who are rich and put into place all of these laws to control how we behave. They don't understand us. They don't live our lives. They don't know how we live. In their arrogance and narcissism, they believed that what would happen is that people would just buy the more expensive, thicker ones that they allowed to exist. And it wasn't a loophole that it was allowed to exist. It was done for the purpose of it's going to cost people more, so people won't throw them away. Well, people were throwing them away. Not to mention there were numerous reports that were showing that people vary in their reaction to reports about certain things when it comes to health, but it showed that reusing these bags over and over again, that they weren't healthy, that bacteria could form, could spread, and so you had reports like that, and that caused a lot of people to not reuse the bags. So you had, despite the fact that the politicians felt that people would reuse them, people did not reuse them. So as a fix, the state assembly and Senate are now moving down to crack down on those carry-out bags, which have been permitted for the past 10 years. Yet the legislation doesn't cover sturdy, reusable bags made of non-woven polypropylene, which feels like canvas but is made of plastic. Grocers don't mind if the government bans other bags if they can sell these at about $1 or $2 a pop, but as New Jersey found out after it passed its own plastic bag ban, NWPP ends up in the trash too, and plastic consumption went up there as well. So, once again, here's a policy put into place based off of how they thought people would react, even though they have no ability to relate how it is that the average person lives. It was done for the purposes of cutting down on plastic, and instead it resulted in a 50% use or increase in the use of plastic and the throwing away of plastic because of what they said was a loophole, which wasn't a loophole. It was deliberately designed this way in order to try to get people to behave a certain way, but people did not behave that way. If people could just brush aside Republican, Democrat, or, well, I'm a Democrat, and Democrats support this, so I'm going to be behind it, no matter what. If instead we just looked at results. If instead we looked at, has anyone done this before? Oh, they have done it before? Let's see how that turned out. It didn't turn out well. Let's not do that. But instead, well, my party tells me that I need to support it and that there wasn't enough money behind it. They need more of my money in order to make it work, because if you add more financial resources to something that doesn't work, it somehow is magically going to make it work. And so they get behind it, no matter how many times it fails. This is where an uneducated population benefits specifically the Democrat Party, but overall people who sell the idea that government is the answer. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 61. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 82.
And some of your messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. In reference to the cringy pandering that Democrats do, whether it's the back, one of you had mentioned Elizabeth Warren telling her husband, "Oh, grab me a beer out of the fridge," and she's twisting off the top there, or popping it off and drinking straight out of the bottle, or Kamala and the crew going in looking for Doritos, or Hillary talking about how she keeps hot sauce in her purse. And I noted that I'm sure Republicans do this pandering to some degree, but it just seems as if Democrats do it. Now, a number of you had said, well, guns. That Republicans, they always have guns in campaign ads. Well, I mean, that is part of, though, the Republican culture. And that doesn't mean that every Republican who runs an ad that has them shooting an AR-15, that they own an AR-15. But I don't really, I mean, I'm talking about, even in a non-political sense, trying to pretend that you're something that you're not. Trying to pretend, oh, I'm just like a black person because I randomly carry hot sauce in my purse, like Hillary Clinton said. Or this filming of going in to get Doritos and making a big deal out of it. I mean, the fact that they note it, they film it, and they push it out tells you that they think they're onto something. Because why would you film that? Why, if that is part of your everyday life, that is, you wouldn't, oh, hey, let's film this and post it. It's because they believe that they are performing in a manner that is relatable to other people, but they don't know that world. Or Chuck Schumer and the grill with the frozen patty and the piece of cheese on it, pretending that he's grilling it. Firearms are legitimately part of the Republican culture. So I don't consider that inauthentic. I suppose you could still say it's pandering, but it is at the same time who they are. And so I consider those to be different things. It would be like, a Democrat driving some sort of hybrid vehicle or something, if I saw it, I thought, well, that seems about right, or driving a vehicle with a Trump is Hitler bumper sticker, I would think, yeah, that makes sense. That's completely authentic. It's the same thing with Republicans and firearms, and that's who they're for. That's what they support, the Second Amendment. So to me, those are separate things. Speaking of, I mentioned this just briefly one day. This deal with the $85,000 rebranding of the logo for the Springfield Public Schools. Have you been observing, Sarah, the back and forth on social media? Well, it's not even a back and forth so much as people are just out.
I haven't read any articles about it, but I did see the new logo.
And so this is $85,000 that was spent to rebrand, and the $85,000 it covered, I guess, research to figure out how it is to essentially make the Springfield Public Schools a more attractive place.
And the logo is going to do that?
Well, that apparently is part of it.
Okay.
Because it's an open door. Okay. Now, I'm old school, and I figure, well, if you start having improved results, that will do that for you. Instead of spending money trying to figure out how can we look like a place people want to come work, how can we look like a place that people will want their children to be educated, why don't you just make it that sort of place?
Yeah, why don't you set a high standard?
Yeah, how about that? How about you actually stop doing what is not working and start looking at ideas that are different from that to see if those ideas work? Now, Springfield collectively, during the last election, had the opportunity to make that switch, and they did not. So, unfortunately, they chose to have a majority of people on the school board that have this sort of mindset, doing things the way that we've always done it. And so, hey, this is Springfield. This is what Springfield wanted by way of their vote. And so this is what Springfield's going to get. But what I thought was really, actually, I saw I don't know who this person was, but they made a posting on social media. And so, of course, that's the little,
yeah.
and I hold it up there, so I don't know if people can see it on the camera.
Yes.
That is part of the $85,000. Someone had posted the logo for the New England Center for Children, Autism, and Education Research.
Oh.
I mean, it looks exact.
No, put them right next to each other. Put them side by side.
It's like one is rounded off. But, I mean...
Oh, no. You think they made that in, like, Canva or something?
Well, and the funny thing is, now, I'm not familiar with all those different programs, but the person who posted it, they're like, for $85,000, all you have to do is, and they like change the font to this, do this, and here you go, ta-da! That's what $85,000 gets you. Well, but here's the other thing. That does not cover the cost of changing everything that has the old logo on
That's
it
right,
into the new logo. And we've deal with that. Any business that you change your, whether it's your logo or if you have some sort of tagline, and it is on all of your material. It's on your vehicles. It's on your letterhead. It's on maybe glass doors. You've got the logos. All of that stuff has to change. And you may have noticed that any time bids are put out or you have any sort of contracting done with a government entity, schools being one of them, that generally inflates the price of things. Because they see anytime it's a government entity, they ultimately have unlimited dollars, and you can really jack up your price. And I'd be interested to see if there is any, or if there has been an estimate on what that is going to cost the taxpayers. The thing about this, listen, if you are an entity, whatever you are, school, private business, whatever the organization is, and you are... you have just a steady record of improving results. And you look around the landscape and you're like, our results are not only better than the rest of the country, but even better than private schools. We just have, and you want to make sure people know that. I can see putting a little money into that and saying we need people to know what we really are, because what we have here is an opportunity that is above and beyond for parents, for teachers, for people that want to work in a school district. We are so far above and beyond everyone else with results, but we just haven't gotten that message out. We need to figure out how to do that. That would be one thing. But when you continue on a path of decline, you continue to refuse to alter the course, which is going to result in more failure for students, and you spend this kind of money essentially in order to try to trick people into thinking that you're something special, that's where you have a problem. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. When people went to vote a couple of weeks ago, or was that last week when that took place, or the week before? I don't even
It was a
remember.
couple weeks ago.
A lot of folks noted that the I voted stickers were different, and I saw people on social media, and they would ask, "Where did these are different?" And I think it was some sort of contest that was done by the clerk's office, and it was submitted. I believe a fourth grader, maybe, or some. There was a child and there was voting and everything, and I'm sure there's a cost associated with that. But people really noted it and thought, "Oh, this is really cool." And I saw people chatting about it on social media. And of course, many people have noted, why could not the Springfield public school system have done the same thing when it came to their new logo? And let it be some sort of competition with kids, maybe have a scholarship component in there, or you have these different, you've got kids that obviously this is something that they're very good at. They're probably wanting to go on in terms of higher education. So it could be a big deal, and it could also get people excited about it, get students excited about it, and make them feel as if they're part of that aspect of the school district. And what I've noticed, and I thought it's just typical, when people are having these discussions on social media, defenders of the district explain, well, that's not how it's done. Well, you don't understand. This is how it works. This is the problem. This is why the district continues to decline in results. Because, well, you don't understand. We do it this way. Yes, we know how you're doing it. We know your approach. We know your culture. We know your mindset. And that's why your refusal to listen to anyone else and to believe that, no, you don't understand. This is how we do it. And that's the only way to do things is part of the reason that you'll never get out of this decline. Because of this is how we do it attitude and mentality. Well, this is how we do it has not proven to be successful. Going to get a traffic update. Some of the reaction will play audio of even on some of the major networks. Reaction with Kamala Harris's economic policy. No one really is coming out and saying this is fantastic. The reaction from some is essentially, apparently, to try to convince you, don't worry, she won't actually implement her economic policies anyway. These are from supporters of hers. None of this is a good sign for her campaign. None of this is a good sign for America. Traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 61. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 82.
All right, I got a number of audio clips here. Reaction to the big announcement, the big economic policy announcement from Kamala. Now, there's two issues that are continuing and have been for several years now. The biggest issues for the American people, one, of course, being the economy. This is unavoidable. It's unavoidable because you cannot trick people into believing what is going on isn't going on because it is happening to us. It's one thing to try and spin what is occurring, let's say, between Ukraine and Russia. You know, you can make statements that perhaps are not in line with reality, but people don't know because we're not in Russia. We're not in Ukraine. We aren't actually seeing it with our own eyes. Yes, we see what the news is reporting, but that's what the news is reporting. The problem the Democrats have been dealing with is the fact that they're trying to tell us that the economy is good when we are in the economy. Ultimately, the plan from Team Harris is to blame Americans, primarily business owners, and to implement a Soviet-style price-fixing scheme because it worked very well there. This is checking out the landscape, looking at people who are experts in a particular field, and then determining what worked, and then saying, let's do that. Apparently, Kamala Harris felt that what's going on in Venezuela is great. Cuba is a shining example of what price control approach can do. Soviet Union. Government coming in and dictating these things to businesses. This is a liberal columnist on, I believe this was CNN Friday, regarding parts of her proposal.
Particular way that this is written, which is likely to be the template for any proposal that Harris would eventually embrace, is especially bad in that it just bans excessive prices, grossly excessive profit margins, and says that the Federal Trade Commission can use any metric it deems appropriate to decide what that would mean, which basically says, like, it's not going to be markets, it's not going to be supply and demand that's determining how much your grocery store charges you for milk or for eggs. It's going to be some bureaucrat in D.C., which seems like totally unworkable, first of all, for the FTC to be deciding like how much Kroger charges for eggs in Michigan. But it also would be very bad for markets. We've seen this kind of thing tried in lots of other countries before: Venezuela, Argentina, the Soviet Union, et cetera. It leads to shortages. It leads to black markets. Plenty of uncertainty. And beyond that, the specific way this bill is written might actually increase prices because of some of the other language in it.
Well, and of course it will. You don't have to be an economic expert, as this liberal columnist for the Washington Post notes here. This has been tried. These are the people who mock trickle-down economics, which is what we're seeing. I love these people who claim that trickle-down economics was some sort of approach to controlling the economy, when trickle-down economics is not even a philosophical approach. It's just a recognition of what happens. And that is, when there is an impact on things economically speaking at the top, that impact trickles down to all of us. That's exactly what inflation is. This is what's occurring. When you have the people who produce things, and it costs more to produce those things, once those items and those products make their way down to the grocery store, that price increase trickles down to the grocery store. Then when you go to the grocery store in order to purchase it, that price increase, the additional cost, trickles down to you. That is trickle-down economics. It's not some plan that was implemented and failed. It is a simple recognition of reality. Now, those same people who claim that trickle-down economics is some sort of myth are out there thinking, or at least the Kamala Harris campaign, an economic approach of government control that has been tried on numerous occasions, and it has failed miserably, and that's the route that they want to go. You would have thought they would have, I don't know, checked with some people before they unveiled this? Test ran it by some of their allies in the media? Because apparently they ran this by nobody. Gretchen Whitmer, of course, a huge ally of Kamala Harris, being asked on ABC, which one of the networks is it here? It's one of the networks, and the host is trying to pin her down to give some sort of substantial response to these policies, and what you'll hear is a dance going on in which Gretchen Whitmer is doing anything and everything she can to, one, she certainly isn't supporting or endorsing this economic policy, but at the same time, she doesn't want to be seen trashing on it.
Into some of the policies the vice president laid out, some of her economic policies this week. Among other things, she's proposing a ban on price gouging. Here is what Obama administration economist Jason Furman had to say. He said, quote, "This is not sensible policy. And I think the biggest hope is that it ends up being a lot of rhetoric and not reality. There's no upside here, and there is some downside." He warned effectively that price controls could ultimately stifle economic growth. So do you think that's the best way to bring down prices in Michigan?
Well, I think people are reading too much into what has been put out there. We know that Kamala Harris is going to be focused on building up more affordable housing. We know that Kamala Harris has already delivered on making sure that health care is more accessible and affordable for Americans. And will protect Obamacare. That's 1 million people who have health care in Michigan right now that Donald Trump's been trying to rip away. That only adds costs onto people's backs. And so that's why I think this opportunity economy that Vice President Harris is talking about and laying the broad strokes for, I think shows we really do. She sees every American. She understands what people are struggling with and wants to help you keep more money in your pocket. The biggest part of our personal budgets go toward housing, go toward health care, go toward the fundamentals. And she's got a plan on all those fronts to help more Americans be able to get a path to prosperity.
Well, Governor, I hear you saying that folks are reading too much into it, and yet it is what the vice president is proposing. You have former President Trump calling the policies communist. The Washington Post editorial board called it a gimmick. Is this plan to ban price gouging anything more than a gimmick, Governor?
I think it speaks to Kamala Harris's values, that she wants consumers to keep more money in their pockets. She wants hardworking Americans to be able to get ahead. She wants to make sure that there is corporate responsibility. We know we've got to have business growth in this country, small business growth, big business growth for good paying jobs. But we also know that you can't gouge and hurt the American consumer just to pad your bottom line. And I think there's a balance there. And I think that's what this is all about.
So you think it's smart policy, Governor?
You know, I think that any effort we make to keep more money in Americans' pockets is worth walking the path and having the conversations and figuring out how do we make this economy work for everybody.
Yeah, her last remark here, it's Gretchen Whitmer, that, well, it's worth trying. Clarence Thomas once noted that when it comes to socialism, the problem with it is that you're experimenting with people's lives. That you have real repercussions. Now, they don't affect the Gretchen Whitmers. They don't affect all of the rich Hollywood elites that are throwing fundraisers for Kamala Harris, that are going to be speaking at the DNC. This does not impact their lives. And as Clarence Thomas had noted once, that the problem is real people suffer when these implementations occur. And so for Gretchen Whitmer to be like, well, you know, it's worth it to give it a try, not to millions and millions of Americans, it's not. How she tried to downplay. This is the economic plan, Kamala Harris, the number one issue right now, the economy. And Gretchen Whitmer's initial response is, oh, people are reading too much into this. Just don't pay attention to it. This is her economic policy. Kamala Harris, what she says she will do if she's president of the United States. And we're supposed to just don't pay much attention to it. I mentioned earlier, and as the story there noted, that even Obama's top economic advisor said this is a horrific idea. You have the CEO of Goya Foods, largest Hispanic-owned food company in the United States, saying, quote, of Kamala Harris's plan, they're using a nail gun to put the last nails in the coffin of this economy in this country. We're going to take a break, and then I want to play audio regarding what Whitmer is there in housing and talking about, well, she's also, one of the things that we know that she's really wanting to do, her plan is to have this $25,000 credit for new home purchases. Can we say double inflation? Some audio response to that plan coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, I spoke with Josh with the Pyramid Roofing Company on Friday, and one thing that he really wanted to warn you guys about is hail damage and making sure to file those insurance claims before it is too late. Now, whether you have damage from the storm that happened last week or from the May storms, make sure that you have a qualified roofing professional take a look at your roof for you if you think you do have storm damage. And that is why I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, one thing that really sets the Pyramid team aside from other companies is that they actually work through that insurance process without making you sign any type of contract or agreement. And a lot of companies, they don't operate that way, but the Pyramid team, they get that it can be stressful and sometimes confusing, so they really do want to make that roofing process just a little bit easier for you. They're upfront, they're honest, and I couldn't recommend the Pyramid team enough for all of your roofing needs. So if it is time to schedule that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
It's one of the draws that is being marketed for the Democratic convention is free abortions. And it's funny because I've seen some members of Congress saying, I thought this was a joke at first. And we had talked about it in the first hour of the show, and sometime after that someone had texted in, and they didn't hear the first part of the show, but they said, hey, a friend of mine claimed that they were offering free abortions outside the Democratic, Planned Parenthood would be there giving out free abortions, and they were suspect. Like, is this true? It is true. And I kid you not, after you get your abortion, they give you a coupon for a free hot dog. Evidently at some market or restaurant that is helping support the free abortion. So you get on your way out after having your child killed, in case you worked up an appetite doing so, you get a free hot dog or a coupon for a free hot dog. Back to the massive unveiling of Kamala Harris's economic policies, which her own people have acknowledged they do not want many of the details to come out because they're afraid people won't like them. And they don't even like the overall theme of it, and that is Soviet-style price controls. Hasn't really worked. At the same time, she is offering up a $25,000 tax credit when it comes to home buying. On Friday's broadcast of CNN International's First Move, CNN economics and political commentator, Washington Post columnist, and PBS NewsHour special correspondent Catherine Rompel had this to say, and she's a liberal, supportive of Harris. This is what she had to say regarding this component of her economic policies.
She had mentioned both today and in material sent to reporters earlier that she was going to push for another tax credit, a new kind of tax credit to encourage more building for homes of first-time home buyers. I'm not exactly sure how that will work, but at least it's kind of in the right direction. I'm more concerned about another policy that she has released on housing to give first-time home buyers, I think it was a $25,000 tax credit, which sounds nice, but demand is already really strong. If you do have constrained supply, that tax credit is likely just going to get passed along in the form of higher prices. It's just going to make housing prices, $25,000, maybe not the full $25,000, but more expensive. It's going to go into the pocket of sellers.
Which I agree. Now, you can look at it and say that's great for sellers, but the inflationary component, of course, devalues the dollar, and so it isn't the full $25,000. By the way, what she's describing there is trickle down. She's describing the trickle-down effect, a myth, according to the left, of which she is. So, of course, that is exactly what's going to happen. It is as if it was decided to develop economic policies in which the outcomes are obvious because they've been tried before, and we have seen countries, oftentimes our own enemies, collapse largely, primarily, because of the very economic policies that Kamala Harris now says if she's president, she will put into place. I don't like to use the word stupidity, but the stupidity of some of the people in this country that will support this. I'm not going to have time to get to it today. I'm going to I have a lot of things that we just have not had time to get to today, including a piece in the Federalist regarding what will be potentially, or what is one of the single most radical and extreme pro-abortion issues on the ballot in Missouri. We're once again getting some national attention, but for reasons that generally you would see in states run by left-wingers. We tend to, every so often, pop up in the Federalist or Red State or Daily Wire or some of these other outlets that are more conservative-leaning, noting with a head shake what is happening in Missouri. So we'll get to, I've got that I do want to get to tomorrow, but also there is it's a pretty lengthy piece from... he's a writer from Venezuela, and he writes and documents life under socialism there. And it is hey, America, just so you know, here's what the economic policies Kamala Harris is saying that she will implement if elected president. Those policies were implemented here, and here is what has happened. And they're very specific things. We're not talking about these sort of broad aspects of the economy regarding revenue and GDP, but here is what happened when you go to the grocery store after price controls are put into place. This is what happens to the supply. This is going to the grocery store pre-Kamala Harris style economic policies in Venezuela. This is what it was like going after the implementation of those economic policies. And so that is the world. This is not good. I don't care if you're a Democrat, if you are loyal to the Democrat Party. That doesn't mean every single thing that every Democrat says is going to work and is good. This is bad. This is very bad. It is bad for you. It is bad for your children. It is bad for your grandchildren. I suppose, arguably, one could look at the free abortions at the Democratic National Convention as essentially an option, given the economic policy proposals that are going to be further unveiled at the convention by Kamala Harris. Like, just so you know, after you hear what it is we plan on doing to the country, after you hear our economic policies, and if you do a little research, you'll recognize that it has led to the collapse of economies, across the world. If you're pregnant and you think this may not be the best time to have a baby, we can take care of that for you as well. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. This was posted. I don't know if it's from the campaign or someone put it together. The shortest pro-Trump campaign ever.
A loaf of bread costs 50% more today than it did before the pandemic. Ground beef is up almost 50%.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
I don't know if that actually was put together by the Trump campaign or if it was somebody else that did it, but they're like, it's the shortest campaign ad ever. And yeah, it's Kamala. And then, yep, I approve this message. Talk with you tomorrow. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.